Good?
I think so.
All right. And of course,
It'll be during Mike's thing. 'Cause
What's that?
Legislative doesn't have a thing, so
Yep.
when we get to Mike's thing, it'll probably fit well in policy.
Okay, because we don't have policy, so.
Right. So that'll,
Okay. Okay.
I'll mention my thing.
Is that okay?
It's fine.
That's what we were trying to work out.
We can do that?
Yeah, that's close enough.
We'll
Okay.
see.
Okay. All right. The time is 6:01, so I'd like to call to order the Norwood City School District Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 29th, 2023. Mrs. Camphouse, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Atwood,
Present.
Ms. Ballard,
Present.
Mrs. Rarica,
Present.
Mr. Taylor,
Present.
Mrs. Cole.
Present. All right, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3 on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
All motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse?
Mr. Atwood,
Yes.
Ms. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Rarica,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
Mrs. Cole.
Yes. Okay, with that approved, we can move on. Item 4, this is our discussion items section. So item 4.01, this is our beautification plans. So I'm not sure whom, am I turning it over to you, Mrs.
That's
Camphouse?
me and Mr. Peter. We are
Okay,
just wanting some direction on the beautification project. So I want to go over the history just a little bit. April 14th, we opened bids for the boilers, roofs, and the beautification project. Unfortunately, all the bids were too high to accept. They all exceeded 10%. But in fact, the beautification bid was more than double the estimated budget. So we have rebid the boilers. You'll consider that contractor at our special meeting tonight. And then we have the bid opening Friday for the roofs. So I've got the most important parts taken care of under bid, but we want to circle around again to the beautification project, which includes front entrance updates, landscaping, green spaces, welcome areas for parents, and playground updates, as well as some specialized work per each elementary campus, whatever fit into that campus. Unfortunately, the work this summer was on such a tight deadline that everything had to work out perfectly in order for us to finish the work on time this summer. Now that we must rebid the project, we've missed that small opportunity to work this summer. Our goal is to rebid the beautification work this winter with an early summer start date. We will bid each elementary separately, though advertised together, hoping to get some smaller contractors interested in the work and to boost competition. We certainly hope that the one contractor that bid previously will bid again this winter. I just wanted some feedback on that. There is some talk also that we might have to bid, when we bid it out separately, that we might have to bid it out and then do the work separately. But we're hoping that we don't have to do that because that would spread it over 3 years. We're hoping next summer we can get it all done, all the beautification work done after it gets bid out this winter. I just wanted some feedback on that. How do we feel about?
That's what I was thinking of. Even if somebody would do one this summer, smaller project. I don't know if it's too late for that.
I don't know that any of them are small.
Right. Well, but one is much
Right.
smaller than 5.
Right.
And that's right. And this is the 3 elementaries that we're talking at right now because we have phase 1 and phase 2. But for phase 1, there was only one contractor that I guess in the Cincinnati area that felt comfortable enough bidding on all the work to get done in that one short period of time. And of course, their bid reflected that. But I don't think it was a true bid, though. I think they just were. I think they were just throwing a number at us, telling us that they were interested. They didn't want to give us their true bid because then it, kind of shows their hand for when they bid again when we rebid it. So, I hate that we have to delay it for another year, but I don't see any way out of it. But we'll certainly, get back to work again on it with the architects and get the packages ready to be bid again in the winter time and be all ready to go
I'm good with that.
Mid-May.
So
Does
I'm,
that sound like a good plan?
Gives
Yeah.
us a longer timeline to get everybody lined up. And we can bid multiple companies too, like if one did Williams and one did View.
Exactly.
Same as our
That-
construction.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Is there anything, I mean, obviously we've got the boilers that we can do this summer. So honestly, if they're making a mess with boiler work and coming in with equipment, we probably wouldn't want them traipsing around in the middle of redoing the gardens and
Right.
walkways and stuff anyway. So maybe it's a good thing that this kind of happened.
Yeah. I think you're right, especially with the roofs, because
Yeah.
that's going to be
Yeah.
Oh,
really
they'll be
messy.
throwing their stuff all over the yard.
Right.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
I know
Is
I
there
had a
anything
neighbor who got the
small
roof
that
done.
needs to be done, like at the middle school or high school with finishing that landscape up? That we could do this summer and knock that out?
We haven't really even got that scope down yet, so
Okay.
we kind of looked at the whole project and said, let's just work on the elementaries, because it was pretty big, a pretty big bunch of work to do. So we picked the elementaries, mostly because the playgrounds
Yeah.
were something that we all really wanted to get finished. And I'm disappointed, and I know, we're all disappointed. We worked really hard on this project. But it's just a delay. We're not canceling it. We're just gonna have to delay it, another year, and then get the work done in the next summer.
And it's better sometimes to pause and take a step back than it is to rush through it.
And that's true too.
And so it gives some time to regroup and,
So we'll just have to be, like I always say, deliberately transparent with our parents and especially our staff, because we involved quite a bit of staff members into the dreams of what do we want. So I want to make sure that we let them know that we're still on. We're just gonna have to delay it another year. Any questions at all, or comments, or anything for either John or I?
I'm leaning towards the pavilion. I think we do want to get that pavilion together.
Okay.
Which school is that at?
Primary.
Yeah, that would be nice to get
The
that done.
curvy wall?
No,
Oh, a
It's
different
right
one?
next to the curvy wall.
The thing next to the curvy wall.
this is the shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah, the church donated that shelter to
Oh,
us.
right,
and It's
right.
a nice big area that we're gonna turn into an outdoor classroom.
I've had several people mention that they saw that it moved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is probably something we could get put up and be using it.
They'd be able to move it again without any issue. It wouldn't, like if they put it up. Right, that's what I'm wondering.
But it fits in the
If we set it
plans?
up,
We better know exactly where we want it.
that's what I mean. Is it going to affect our future bill if we put it up right now?
That's our first question.
Yeah.
For the architects and installer. But that would be nice to do.
Well, yay trees at the high school.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm seeing a lot of people post about it.
Yeah, they like it. It looks really nice, they said, so.
Good.
I'm happy
And
with
we'll
it.
get some shade on the road and the sidewalk and in the grass.
And the parents that have to come watch practice have a place. So
Some
shade.
shade.
Under the trees.
Yeah.
Well, next summer we'll have some shade on every campus, or every building.
That's the goal.
All right, then that is our goal. That is what we're moving forward to.
all right. So 4.02, this is the 5-year forecast. So Mrs. Campos, you get to talk some more.
Yes, I do. So on the forecast, you can turn it. And again, tonight we're reviewing the 5-year forecast for May. We're going to focus on real estate valuation increases and the resulting revenue changes starting next year, stagnant state funding, and our expenditure cliff. Please know that this forecast compares favorably to the November forecast. Operating revenue estimates have increased about $660,000, although some of this is due to timing. Operating expenses estimates have decreased by $57,000, so this is a more positive forecast than the prior year. This bar graph is a summary statement of our new May 5-year forecast. It's similar to the November forecast, except like I said before, revenue estimates have increased. In this graph, The black bars are revenues and the gray bars are expenditures. Each bar cluster is a school year. So you'll see the first one is actual, the second one is the current school year, and then we have 4 years of estimated in the future. Where the red arrow is pointing, that is the first year that we start spending into our carryover. Although it's a slight amount, but then the final 2 years of the forecast, you'll see that gray bar exceeds the black bar by quite a bit, where we're spending into our carryover quite a bit more. The reason for the past 2 years and the current year we have had positive cash flow, of course, is due to ESSER grant funding, which is federal COVID stimulus money. It has temporarily relieved the general fund by allowing us to move 24 staff members this year to grant funding instead of the general fund. Last year, 31 staff members were paid from this federal COVID stimulus money, and next year we will only have 8 staff members paid from that funding. So you can see why our bottom line has been positive for the past several years. By fiscal year 25, all staff members will come back to the general fund and our cash flow becomes negative. This slide is a revenue overview. In the blue bar graph, the first 5 bars show actual revenue history, and you can see that it has been stagnant except for in 2018. We had one large lump sum payment that was a one-time payment. The last 5 bars are estimated future year revenues, and I do have small increases built in starting this year, as I expect residential tax revenues to increase somewhat, and we'll talk about that some more in the next slide. Real estate taxes are extremely important to this district. They make up more than half of our total revenues. This is a close-up of just real estate taxes. Our second settlement this school year was higher than expected, making up for the loss in revenue in the last settlement, which is in the prior school year. Although this is just a timing change, it does positively affect the forecast. This is the change that increased our tax revenue this year and future years, but it reduced next year. I expect a large residential valuation increase in tax year 23 based on the inflated home sales in the past 3 years. We've had a very hot real estate market for homes in the past several summers, and that has reflected in higher sales prices, which the auditor will use in their valuation update that they have this year. Every 3 years, Ohio counties adjust home values based on sales. 2023 is the year for Hamilton County. The additional revenues have been included in the past several forecasts. However, please know that all inflationary growth and valuation does not equal equivalent revenue increases to districts, and only revenues based on the 20 mil floor will see growth. All other outside millage will be decreased so that tax revenues remain about the same, even though the values increase. So you'll probably hear a lot of people talking about their home value going up, and they will be, on one hand, you're excited because your home is worth more, but on the other hand, you're not excited because your taxes are going up. But your taxes aren't going up as much as they can, or as they could have, because House Bill 920 squashes a lot of inflationary growth purposefully, so that there's not non-voted tax increases on residential homes. This slide is on state funding. State funding is broken out into 2 different types, restricted and unrestricted. In this graph, the orange is unrestricted and the green is restricted. You'll see 2 years of history and then 5 years of estimated going forward. You'll see no growth and their very stagnant state funding. The reason that we are not seeing any growth in state funding is because we are what's considered a guarantee district, and I will talk about that more in the next slide. But I did want to draw your attention to the pie graph in the top right corner. The blue is state funding, and that's a portion of our total funding. We're only at about 27% state funding. The rest of our funding must come from our local taxpayers and other sources. On the next slide, state funding guarantees on the previous slide when we were talking about unrestricted funding, there are two different drivers of unrestricted funding, and one of those drivers is formula funding, where the state is actually paying us on how many students we have in the district. And the other driver is something that we call the guarantee. And so the state looks back at our prior funding amount, and if our formula revenues are not high enough, they will give us more money in a guarantee payment to make up the difference so that we are made whole from the prior year for most of our funding from the state. But in this slide, I'd like to show just how much our guarantee is, how dear is our guarantee to the district. So you'll see in the current year, which is the first bar graph, 406,000 of the 7.2 million that we're getting from the state is due to that guarantee funding. And if you go all the way down to 2027, the last bar graph, of the 7.2 to 7.5 million that we'll get from the state by that time, 4.2 million is from our guarantee. So our guarantee becomes more and more dear to us. And the reason that's important is if the state ever makes cuts to guarantee funding, that would be important to this district, as we would see definite decreases in state funding. At this time, I do not expect any guarantee funding cuts from the state. The state itself is doing very good financially, and typically in the past, when the state is having a good year, they do not cut funding to school districts. So I think we'll be okay for several years before we have to start worrying about that. I have stabilized estimated student counts for future forecasted years to include increases in open enrollment students. If we see large increases in open enrollment, though, I will have to further adjust my student counts. Do you have any questions on this one? This slide can be a little confusing.
I went to the fair funding class, so I heard all about the guarantee thing and how they're sounded like they were slowly phasing it out, but making sure that some things stayed. It was very confusing.
It is confusing, and they're not phasing it out, but what they're doing is they're trying to make the formula work better
Right.
for districts so that they're being weaned off the guarantee. It's not working for us as much as I would love it to work for us, but as they continue to tweak the formula, hopefully in the future it'll work for us.
I
So.
think one of the people that was there asked about property value not necessarily meeting income value,
Exactly.
which was really hard because for them they were rural district farms are worth a lot of money, and the land is worth a lot of money. So when you do that valuation based on the property, and they're like, yeah, but they are farmers, so their income is only based on the production of their farm. It's not really an hourly wage, and they're not earning
Right.
a high income. Their land is worth a lot, but suddenly they have to pay higher taxes because their land is worth more. So then the guarantee doesn't balance for them. So they're like, how is this working? So I think what they were trying to address was something like that to affect, just because you have a higher property value doesn't mean your personal income can support the value of the property that you own.
Or if you can get a levy passed.
Yeah.
So really,
For sure.
when the state looks at how much is local share, they really should look at how much revenue is coming in locally, not how much the valuation is, but
Because I bought my
They didn't
house
ask
way
me.
cheaper than what it's worth. It's like, I can't afford it if I was gonna buy it at what
Right.
it's worth.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know.
And they talked about adjusting for, like Norwood lost the GM plant, so
Yes.
other communities that have things like that happen to them. Now that formula will adjust for that. That was a big one. So yay, something
It is a
like
good
that
sign.
happens to us
At
again.
least they're talking about it and they're
Yeah.
aware of those issues and they're trying to make adjustments appropriately, but.
It is good that they are tweaking the formula so that it's starting to work for some districts, and hopefully they continue to do so.
Yeah.
On this slide, we're just talking about investment revenues. This is part of other revenues, and I'd like to pull this one out just because it is so, it's changed so much from prior years. But you'll see in this bar graph that interest revenue has varied greatly in the last couple of years. In 21 and 22, those are those really small amounts. Finally, in the 23, we shoot up, and that's just because the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 4.5%. In the last year, we saw another 0.25% hike in May. The Federal Reserve has indicated that this is a long-term interest rate increase to combat inflationary growth, and they will not decrease rates immediately upon seeing inflation reduction results. I expect higher interest rates in revenues to continue next year also, before I expect them to drop due to the Federal Reserve action during a more recessionary period. So I think the rest of this year we'll continue to see pretty nice rates, and then next year, and then it'll start dropping back down again. Probably due to the Federal Reserve working on a recession instead of an inflationary growth like they are now. This is an overview of our expenditures. In the bar graph, the blue bar graph, you'll see, in the multicolor graph, you'll see that by 2027, salaries and benefits will consume almost 80% of our general fund budget. And 80% is, 80% of the total budget in salaries and benefits is just not sustainable. That's kind of a magic number in school districts. They try to keep, everybody tries to keep payroll and benefits below that 80% number. Remember, this is not, at Norwood, it's not from overpaying staff, but from being overstaffed. In our history, student counts fell. Prior administration did not reduce staffing levels, and this is from many, many years ago. However, in the last several years, we've been reducing staffing through attrition. As teachers retire, we don't replace them unless absolutely necessary, and that has helped the forecast quite a bit. In addition, our neighborhood school concept doesn't allow for concentrated classes by grade, which further reduces staffing. However, our taxpayers have continually supported the neighborhood school concept and the way they vote for district levies. So we will continue that neighborhood school concept for as long as we absolutely can, because that's what our voters like.
As a parent, I really, really like it.
Please?
As a parent, I really, really, really like
I
it.
can understand that. It's an awesome thing. This slide just defines payroll, and the different colors just define different classifications of staff. But overall, you'll see the decline in payroll costs in fiscal year 22 and 23 as we use ESSER funding again to supplant the general fund. In fiscal year 25, the federal grant will be spent and all 24 employees paid from it will have to come back to the general fund, as I've talked earlier, which causes a definite expenditure cliff. Payroll and benefits will climb over the last 4 years of the forecast until they nearly reach 80% of our total budget, which again is unsustainable. Using the forecast as a planning tool it is intended to be, we continue to reduce staffing and make cuts in other areas through attrition as we can. Another larger portion of our expenditures, of our total expenditures, is purchase services. The light blue graph shows 5 years of purchase service history and 5 years of future estimates. In 2022, that's where you'll see that really large drop in purchase services. This is due to the change in state funding that mandates that the state now pays for school choice, not school districts. So that saved us about $1.5 million between 21 and 22 when the state picked up that bill for school choice. However, we also received less state funding that year starting in 2022. Purchase services also include costs like utilities, staff training, contracted cleaning and transportation costs, and special education contracted costs. In fiscal year '23, we've seen increasing expenses in special education contracted costs. I expect that to continue in the forecasted years as well as an increase in cleaning costs. Purchase services will continue to grow until they absorb 16.4% of our total general fund budget. And finally, on the last slide, this is our bottom line. It's a bunch of numbers, but if you look in the area that I have circled, you'll see that in fiscal year '25 is the first year that we start spending into our carryover. That's a very small number, however. I am hopeful that in the next year, plus years, we can get that number down to a positive. It's just negative $308,000. So if we can get that positive, then in '26 and '27, those numbers will be a little better also. The ending cash balance this year, I always like to break out the cash balance into how many days it will last us if we, without getting new revenues. So if you look at that ending cash balance for this year, we're at $14,483,000. That is 183 days cash, meaning again our balance will last us 183 days without further revenues. By fiscal year '27, our estimated ending days cash is 116. As a reminder, our board policy states that we have a 90-day minimum cash balance policy, and if we would have a forecast where we do only have 90 days cash projected for an ending balance, that we would have to give the Board of Education a plan on how to avoid that occurrence. I think that was everything. Are there any questions on the forecast? I know I ran right through it real fast.
You always do such a good job. I understand it all.
Thank you.
And I'm really glad I went to those classes. So when you talked about the fair funding thing, I was like, okay, I've seen some of this. This is looking familiar.
Good. I'm very glad.
Have you heard of any new potential legislation that is not yet factored in but could potentially over the next 5 years that we might see a direct impact on this besides fair funding? Anything else they're looking at?
The House bill that I was so upset about, I can't remember what it was now, where they restricted our ways for Board of Revisions.
Yeah.
There is some opposition to that now. Well, there was a bunch of opposition, but now they're
I asked
actually,
about that.
Oh,
actually,
you
at the
did,
time.
yes.
Yeah.
And he did say something
yeah, they're actually,
is coming, hopefully.
there's actually a concentrated group of people that are going to, I can't remember it all. We have a automatic right to appeal decisions through the court system, and the Board of Revision is a court system. And so they're saying by them restricting our rights to appeal that they're violating our rights. So we're hoping that goes somewhere, because we really should be allowed to protect our commercial valuations. So we'll see if that goes anywhere,
Right.
but it would be really great if it would.
So when we can't protect our commercial valuations, then citizens have to pay more money, and we don't want to put that on our citizens. So
That's
businesses,
exactly right.
we love businesses, we love schools,
That's exactly right.
we love each other.
We'll keep an eye out for it.
Pay
If
your
there's anything we can do
taxes.
to help with that,
Yeah.
let us know.
Yeah, I will let
Resolutions
you,
or
yes, I will let you know if I hear anything, is a resolution or anything like that, for sure. I'll get it in front of you so you can help us fight. Any other questions on the forecast presentation?
If you tell me what to say, I'll go to Columbus
I
and
know
do
that
the
will.
thing.
throw down.
I know you will.
I'll look at that Speaker of the House and I'll tell him what for.
As always, thank you very much, Mrs. Camphouse. We appreciate you. All right, moving on to number 5. This is personnel, and I will turn it over to Superintendent Ronan.
Thank you, Madam President. In the personnel report under resignation, you'll see we have several individuals who are leaving us for other positions or promotions. And So then in 5.02, these, number one, are individuals that we're hiring this year, so we'd like to welcome them. Number two are our teachers who were hired last year who are moving into their second year under contract with the district. And item number three are those individuals who will be receiving continuing contract this year. Item number four, we're bringing back all of our great aides so they are insured employment for the next school year. Number five, as you can see, we're gearing up for summer school and also summer camp. Number six, supplemental contracts. We are hiring a volleyball and a soccer coach. Number seven, these individuals work days during the summer, as you can see, providing health aid for summer school or also testing preschool youngsters. Then number eight, these are pupil activity contracts, mostly for spring sports, but we also have some fall coaching positions included in that. And that is all I had. That concludes my personnel report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ronan. Continuing on with number 6, this is our Education Committee, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Rarica.
Thank you, Madam President. We have more field trips. I love reading the field trips. Sharpsburg going to Green Acres. Love that place. Norwood High School going to the Hamilton County Courthouse. Sharpsburg, Cincinnati Zoo, Norwood View, Drake Planetarium, View, UC Baseball, and View doing one of their adopt-a-class businesses, Siemens. That's right here in Norwood. And the marching band will go to Wright State University. And so next is we have a new textbook adoption, and I will turn it over to Christina Chesson to tell you all about it.
Thank you so much. So I brought some guests with me this evening, two high school teachers, two outstanding high school teachers with us, Rick Robish and Reed Farity. And we're going to talk about the social studies resources that we've worked on piloting this year, really looking at them, deciding which ones we thought we might be interested in, having the vendors come in once we knew what our interest level was, and then doing some pilots. So we've done that. Tonight we're here just to talk about grades 6 through 12. We'll be asking for an adoption for 7 through 12 this month, and then next month we'll be returning with our K to 6 recommendations for the board. So this is our team members that we've had part of our 6th through 12th grade team, so it's always nice to recognize them and the time and energy they put forth to look at resources and just help us prepare for the next 6 years. So we're going to start at the high school level with our American government textbook, and we do have some of them that we can pass around as well. So I'll grab that. Mr. Robish, did you want to? Okay. All right.
This is the government one.
Okay. All right, so we'll pass this big one around. Now,
Very
just
weighty.
For the record, we have the students all have an online subscription. So we always buy a class set in case someone doesn't have, that evening is riding the bus or knows their internet won't be working that night, because
There we go.
support students that need help with internet. But sometimes you just need a textbook.
Right.
Maybe only once you carry it for one time, but we do have a textbook. So American government is the course that Mr. Robish
Dang.
is really familiar with. So do you want to share some of the highlights of this particular course?
I mean, I think it's in general. I mean, you know, you think about the last time you adopt books and you think about how technology has moved so much in 10 or 12 years. 10 or 12 years ago, you walked in my room, there was still a little TV up on the corner. And there was probably a TV strapped to a roving thing that we would battle on who got the TV and using it. So that's just 10 or 12 years ago. And to think about the books that we use, we like the books, but the technology has made that change. Now, I'm still an advocate of reading some in a textbook, especially I can only tell you my personal experience. I still do it very much in MP. But the resources and the reading online, there's so many other tools now that we didn't have, especially since I've been working a little bit with ELL students this year, an advocate of seeing the ability to kind of get different languages and make it a lot easier for us as a teacher to convert those. Also differentiation, and all these books will have maybe different levels of summaries. That's a positive. I know Reed has been looking at a lot of the interactive parts, the visual aids, putting you in kind of in that arena of time period. So I just think all those attributes, and those tools now that we have, really in the last 10 or 12, even 10 years ago when we were happy to get something on a CD, I mean, to where we are now in 10 or 12 years, that movement is immense. And so I think even if we were comfortable with things that we use, that just those resources in itself are a benefit to go ahead and make some changes. But we also are very cognizant on, we don't want to waste money. She knows me. I don't like wasting money. And what I mean by wasting money is, you know what, if we have something and we look at what else we could replace it, and we just don't see the financial hurdle there as an issue, we didn't just sign off on everything. So we looked at really core 3 classes of our 9th grade world and our 10th grade American and our 11th grade, American history and our 11th grade American government. Okay. Some electives, APs, we left out of that, okay, through discussions and determination. Now there's a possibility it might come back in a year or so because we might see a book that maybe we wanted to grab onto then that we didn't want to go, like for example, sociology. We passed on a sociology book that was trying to leader of that, and mainly I just didn't like the offering that we had. Sociology is very limited in textbooks. They're more geared to topics, but not as a broad introduction. So I told Chris I couldn't support the book. Okay, that maybe if something comes up in a year or two, come back and suggest that maybe on a single basis, something like that.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this one. So, like Robish said, I've looked a lot of like the interactive attributes to these new books. So to kind of put it in perspective, the textbook that I'm teaching with right now is the same one that was in my high school classroom. So this is definitely something that I think our students need. Big thing that Robish said as well, there are Spanish versions of all of the lessons and activities, and also video clips that kind of summarize every topic in every chapter with English subtitles while it's talking Spanish, which from talking to our English language learners, they say that that is very helpful for them to be able to like hear it in Spanish and then see it in English. It's helping them have literacy skills and vocabulary building. Another thing that I like about it is that there is a parent access portion of this textbook where parents can go on and check their students' progress. And as a teacher, I would love parents to go and just look at their students' progress on assignments like that. Anytime that I think we can get parents a little bit more involved, I think it's definitely a positive. The 3-minute video lessons are super cool because our students, it's hard sometimes to ask them to go and watch like a 20-minute video about a lesson or something, or go and read an entire chapter. So I like the video lesson because it gives them like a really quick kind of summary introduction to a topic, and then it allows us to go back in class and talk about it later. So I was thinking of that for like a homework purpose, like flipped classroom situation. Every single topic throughout the textbook comes with pre-made presentations that are all 100% aligned to standards. So that's really cool. Everything is tied to what's going to be on their state test. The interactive stuff is super nice. It gives visual lessons and kind of like an interactive, like putting the student into a certain time period and letting them explore the time period, not necessarily telling them step by step what to do, but just letting them explore like the ones that I Edulastic. It's awesome. And this Savas has the Edulastic features, but it's also tied into all the assignments that they'll be doing along with us in class. So instead of having like a separate tool like Edulastic is, it's like bringing Edulastic into what their assignments are during the day that we're doing in our class period. So overall, it's really, really cool. I spent quite a bit of time going through it, and yeah, it's awesome. And I think our students, one last thing I want to say about this that I think is important. Our kids are great at using their cell phones. They're great at using iPhones in general. They are not always great about using computers. I think that that's something that we really could work on, is just technology use, not in the form of social media. They are behind. So I think anytime that we can get them to just be able to use a computer in a different way, that's more academic or college or career related, I think that this could help with that as well.
And then the next one is world history.
And world is pretty much
Yeah,
exactly the same.
Yeah. So America for US is the same as the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Other reason we also chose the same, I mean, one, there's not as many textbooks now, but Savas is then, there's consistency as we go through each grade with the tools in ninth grade, then the tools are going to be in 10th grade, so also then the kids will have that repetition and the teachers will have that also. And if you know, you get a new teacher, because you're able to help them travel a little bit too. Sometimes we have textbooks that are different. They were different, you know, even back to Stone.
AP, our AP US history text we're excited about as well.
Yes. So Katie Tambly teaches English, but I know a lot about the AMSCO text just from teaching AP Human, and AMSCO is great because basically what it does is sometimes the textbooks are like, even as a teacher, can be really confusing and complex, especially at the AP level. So basically the AMSCO book, it takes and condenses down everything and ties it directly to the College Board test, which is like the state test for AP classes. Condenses it down, makes it a lot easier for students to understand. Honestly, makes it a lot easier to teach also. The AMSCO books come with workbooks as well that give kids like activities and practice quizzes and stuff that they can do. And it's 100% College Board aligned, which is hard to find with textbooks. So the AMSCO is great. The kids like it a lot more than having to read the massive books that go along with AP classes, and it kind of just gives them what they need to know, and instead of giving them like 1,000 extra topics to talk about that are never going to be tested.
And this is just an updated version, so, because we've been using it, so.
Yeah.
And yes.
And AP's recently changed their courses and their exam descriptors, so we're now in line with that. as well.
Right.
Okay, so now we'll move on to our middle school social studies, and we're just going to focus on 7th grade and 8th grade. And it's a shift for that group. The materials that the teachers are excited about, and some of our teachers are in DC, or they would have joined us this evening. But they are with 2 bus fulls of students right now. So we are embracing the History Alive approach through, in 7th grade, the world through 1750, and in 8th grade, the United States through industrialism. And it is a big pool, as those teachers will tell you. It's a long haul to get them through all of those years, but they're going to do it. So the program that we decided to move forward with, we liked a couple things, and it's kind of echoed from what the high school said. That notion of the reading activities, the classroom activities, and the videos. So this new approach to social studies that is much more interactive and much more engaging than perhaps what we remember when we attended schools in terms of social studies. So you can choose which kind of, based on what the learning is, what's the best approach for that particular lesson because of those flexible options. The reading activities does do the Spanish translation, which we're excited about. You'll see as it's moving through, it highlights the text-to-speech. So if a student needs something to be read to them, it can do that. It can change the level of it's called the lexile level, but it can adjust it. It can make it a below grade level approach if you need to read at below grade level to grade level, on grade level content, but you can adjust it for your own learning at different times. But always, grade level content is always available to all students, and that's really important. It does allow that primary sources are huge in the social studies world, and it will allow students to investigate some primary sources at the 7th and 8th grade classroom. And then here are some of the examples of their libraries. Biographies are cool, games, of course, videos, some civics, and those primary sources in a list of them. And then, of course, there has to be some ease of use, right? So we do have single sign-on. We want our new tools to embrace that approach. It doesn't do us much good to keep going back in time, but we can use them through Google Classroom or through Canvas, both of which we operate at the middle school and high school level and through our Clever system. So that makes it perfectly clean and easy for our students to have that single sign-on and have access to all their resources. So this product is a TCI product that we're looking at for 7th and 8th grade, and we're making a recommendation for the board. And we're really excited about that as well. All of these products are either a 22-year or 23, and that was important for us too. Sometimes social studies might have a really outdated, and they're like, no, this is so good, but we, as Mr. Robish indicated, we're kind of waiting for the next good thing. If what we have is solid and we can use it and use our other resources, we didn't move forward with a recommendation for this month. We're going to wait and see what comes our way and look for always the best work that we can find. So are there any questions about some of the social studies materials that you saw? Mr. Ratley.
So you had mentioned that you piloted these books. Can you talk a little bit about that process of piloting?
Well, I don't know if we piloted it hands-on wise.
Right.
At the high school level.
The middle school did.
Yeah. middle
Okay.
school. But
Try to get it.
what we were able to do was have access to the resources that correspond with it to see if we saw them as being functional with it.
Okay.
I think, did anyone run the units side by side as they were teaching one unit from our current resources, kind of
I
look at?
don't know, I didn't, but,
Yeah.
okay.
And I was freshly started looking at, because after state testing is over, I kind of started looking at, okay, what did we feel that we scored the lowest on, what I assume students probably struggled the most with. And I've kind of been going back to what is on like this new system as far as our lowest standards that they tested compared to the way that I taught it throughout the school year, and kind of compared it that way. So kind of seeing what this offers that I haven't already been doing on the topics that our kids struggle the most with. And this has honestly that this is like the best like thing I could have asked for as far as like teaching materials. So
Middle school went with, what did they go with again?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want my opinion, TCI U15. I kind of dabbled in it years ago, kind of went to workshop, and I really liked it, but it's a little bit of a different creature, so definitely I would say that was smart to do. So we kind of didn't do, we decided not to, but definitely I would not have been comfortable doing TCI with that, having being more immersed in, just because I was in kind of, I've been around for a while, in case you don't know. So I was, this one was young. And, I don't know what,
Yeah,
But
you
I
were there
had
when we
you.
were all there.
You had,
So
yeah.
we're talking about probably when I did that at least 20 years ago. I was really early in that, so I know that is a little, even now, it's a little bit of a change, So I'm glad that they actually got more in the hands-on, because I think it was important that we did that.
They, one of their highlights they would say when we met is just the notion of an event or an activity that students can interact with one another and develop social skills simultaneously while learning some social studies. So they felt like their students coming out of what we've been through, that skill set of being together, working together, collaborating together, perhaps wasn't as strong as what they've seen before. So they liked the idea because that TCI program allows for stronger engagement and more group work and moving around in the social studies classroom, and they thought that would be an approach that would be really positive for our young students.
Yeah.
Well, here's some of the things that I heard that makes me happy, right? So I look at all of this as tools. It's an item in your toolkit that you use to make things better. And what I liked from Mrs. Faraday is she made the comment is she immediately went back and looked at what we had probably scored the worst and see if the new tool could potentially help the next time around to make sure that we're constantly moving forward and we're growing the kids. I mean, that's what I heard coming out of that, and it makes me happy. So.
I like the accessibility piece, especially, like, I'm assuming, because most don't, I assume you don't have an ASL resource, because you have a translation for Spanish. I'm sure that they have not interpreted this entire book. But the fact that the language can be adjusted down, because a lot of deaf kids have reading deficiencies. So the fact that the wording can be leveled down to meet that need is really important, not only for our ESL learners, but for kids who may have a deficit coming from a hearing loss.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's a really good tool to have, because not a lot of textbooks have that ability, and kids are just expected to read at level. And if English is not your first language, where are you going to go? So that tool alone tells me that this will be accessible for students in many different ways. And then you mentioned there was closed captioning on the videos as well, so that was another question that I have. Do they have a voice-to-text option for students with visible disabilities, or vision disabilities as well?
Yes.
So that way they can listen to
I
it?
heard that one. Yeah, I love that.
Okay. Also for dyslexic kids who might have trouble reading. So having that resource, again, the fact that this is so accessible, I just feel bad the teacher text is that big.
But they have the online too.
They
Yeah,
do.
they do.
I like that you guys had a note feature in the books too, so the
Yeah.
teachers can say, okay, well, if this isn't enough, or if students made a great point, you can add that into the textbook for your own use in the future. I thought that was kind of a neat thing. You don't have to keep an extra binder somewhere. You can throw it right into the lesson plan, and that's a neat thing I haven't seen in the past. It's really cool.
That's something that I had forgotten to even talk about. So the speech to text part, I think is really important. Is our kids get the speech to text on their state test if they would like it, because they get the headphone. And learning just how to understand that speech to text is really important. So our kids who are using it constantly throughout the school year are just better at using that feature. So I think having this is helpful, because you have to teach them the skill to be able to use it for that test. So.
I like the differentiation because we just had textbooks and worksheets, and maybe once in a while we could play a trivia game in class. And like, this is like, and we have this, and we have that, and then we can do this, and we could do that. And I'm like, that sounds so fun.
Yeah, this is really cool. Do we have other things in the works similar for other programs?
So K to 6 is next for social studies. So
I just
we
mean
bring
any
that-
class, not just social studies, but is this service available for other?
Yes, you'll see
topics?
a trend with newer adoptions that they want to grab the engagement, and they're recognizing that students need more than just a book. They need a different way to engage with the material. So next year will be an ELA year, and even our math is shifting with our current adoption to stretch a little bit more and do some more interactive work. So their sixth grade piloted an approach with the same curriculum we have, but just a different approach. And so we'll be rolling that out as well. So I think with each new adoption, you'll see a lot more interactive capabilities. You'll see a lot of more honoring people's individual needs and any specialized needs in translation or speech to text. So you'll see some of this as we move forward.
I really felt that ESL thing this year with our exchange student. She was telling me firsthand, like, it is so hard for me to take tests. It takes me so long because I have to translate everything I'm looking at and then translate my answer. And I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah.
A lot. So at our board meeting, we'll be sharing the financial part of it. We'll be bringing the textbooks, and we'll be asking you to approve the finances part. But they are listed on our committee agenda, the books that we're recommending for tonight. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
And thanks for
presentation.
the research work.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part.
Don't call the post office, I get fined. I'll leave it in the staff desk.
So she gets fined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one more thing under Education 6.03, Teacher and Staff Appreciation. Woo! We made a resolution in recognition of Teacher and Staff Appreciation honoring the Norwood Teacher of the Year. Did you want me to read this, or is this
You don't have to read. Maybe we just mentioned that it's Emily Hutchison and that she was invited to the Hamilton County Excellence Award last Friday for a breakfast, and Anthony Munoz gave out the awards, and we have a great picture of her on our website. Plus, we did treat our staff to treats today. We went,
Yay.
Christina, Amanda, and I went around with a card and passed out treats to the teachers in their classroom. And actually our whole staff, not just teachers, because they all work so hard.
fun?
And
That
this is
reminds me
actually-
of candy stripers at the hospital.
Yeah, and today is actually the 9th, is Teacher Appreciation Day, and we make it last the whole week. Plus, individual schools do activities, and some of them have luncheons, have pizza. Someone did, I think, hand massages or something at their school.
Yeah, there was a masseuse at the middle school.
Yes,
Yeah.
see? So some schools are
Why
very
didn't I get an
fancy.
email about that?
To
It
just
showed
let
up
them-
in my support.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lovely way to end the year, letting know the staff we really appreciate how hard they work.
We do.
We do.
And I heard our administration got their steps in today, delivering all the goodies.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, that wraps it up for my education.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Rarica. Item 7 is the policy committee, but we don't have any policies this month. Instead, with approval, we're going to turn it over for a legislative update with Ms. Ballard.
Thank you, Madam President. With the board's blessing, this will be coming up at our next meeting. We had previously discussed this, and now I have an opportunity to actually do something with it. We had talked before, I think Brandon and I made the trip up to the State House, specifically to talk about the disparity between graduation for our special needs students and how when they get deferred, they don't count as graduates for our district, which impacts our report card. And to me, disrespects the work done by our teachers and the work done by those students. What I am looking to do is, we've discussed it for a long time, is hopefully to get some kind of bill, something going at the state level. In order to do that, the first thing we have to do is pass a resolution that we support our special needs students and that they count. If we get that resolution to OSBA, any eventual legislation that comes out of that, OSBA can then support. But it has to go to OSBA first. So what I want to do, and I have in the works, the legislative team at OSBA has been in contact with me to send me draft resolutions so that I can present one to you that we can sign off on. It would be something very simple and, you know, nothing that is going to put things into stone, but it basically would say, hey, we so support and see importance of these students and the work that they do, and that they should count. And it would then go from there at the state level. But we have to get it to them first, and unfortunately, it is due by the end of the month. So I want to get that to you guys. I'll send it out as soon as I have it completed so that you can read it ahead of time. And if you have any tweaks or changes or suggestions, to please get them to me, because it's got to go like through legal, and that's something that Julie has offered to help me with, to make sure the wording is appropriate. But like I said, I want to give you the gist of it, but it's something that we've been talking about for a long time, that I would love to see impact our overall report card eventually, that, hey, these kids shouldn't be deferred and count against districts that are small like ours. And I've talked to a couple other districts that are small, and they're like, hey, we support that too, because those numbers really impact our graduation numbers. You know, a big district like Mason or Centerville, they don't notice 7 kids who have to be deferred. We do, big time. So I'm hoping this will grow. I really hope it is something that we can get behind, and I hope you guys can support me when I bring that to you. So I wanted to give you a heads up.
Yeah, thank you.
We've been
That was
talking
coming.
about that one for a while.
It's been in the works for a long time, and it's finally gotten legs, and I really want to see it shine. So
Good
Yeah,
job.
about 3 years ago when we first brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not many people really understood the impact
no,
and how that affected the state report card.
Yeah.
And just to kind of just highlight here is that it could drop depending on the size of your district and the number of kids that deferred. You know, Amber had mentioned 7. 7 kids could
It did
drop
that year.
our
Yeah,
grade
That's
level
huge.
by 3 letter grades.
it's huge.
Yeah.
We lost an entire letter grade on our high school that year when it got counted in the report card when we went up. That's what gave us the, hey, wait a minute, we need to go talk to somebody about this. But I keep bringing it up every time I meet. I've met with senators, I've met with legislators, and I keep mentioning it, and they're like, I had no idea. I had no idea. I had no idea. I was
That's
like, I
what they
know,
said
that's
when
the
we were
idea.
there too.
That's
Um,
right.
The
Is
guy
it
went, really?
Yeah.
Really? Is-
And I'm like, well, it would help if you guys on the committee knew anything about education.
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is the start to that. I have to put a resolution forward. After that, OSBA can then support it. But if it's not something that's presented to OSBA, legally they can't represent and back it. If I were to write a bill today and just give it to the House, OSBA couldn't support it because it's not in their paperwork. So this is step one so that OSBA can then get behind it and their team can say, hey, yeah, we support making sure these kids count and that our smaller districts are respected for those graduation numbers. So that's step one. So I'll be bringing it to you guys, and like I said, at our next meeting, but I'll send it to you as soon as I absolutely can to work out all the legal terms. The legislative liaison just sent me a rough document of an example so that I can fill in what I need. So it'll hopefully be all legalese up for me. But
Well,
Yeah.
thank
So they're
you.
going to change the whole cohort system? Or is that? I mean,
it's not. I'm looking really to create a loophole opportunity for the cohort system because I can't get them to overhaul graduation, or excuse me, the grading scale that they're using currently for the report card. That's not going to happen anytime soon. I can't see that happening. But what I'm hoping to create is a loophole that allows those kids specifically to either graduate with their cohort that year and still be able to receive the funding they need that is required by the state of Ohio, mind you, to pay for their deferment, or just allow those particular kids, if you needed to defer, you just count whenever it is you finish your deferred programming. And so a 2020 graduate would count in 2024 or 25 whenever they finished instead. And it would just add to that number. It would be like an I. So I want to create a loophole. That's really all I'm looking for. And then that way the report card can reflect more honestly without as much work on their behalf. We just allow those kids to count. That's really all I want. I want them to count. So,
And thank you, Amber, so much. I really appreciate that, and I'm happy to help you with any of that piece as my role as supervisor of special education. So that is a piece that I see as well, an increase, and I'm going to continue to support kids regardless. But that is a tough situation, tough place for me to be, knowing that there's going to be a ding, so to speak, on our district because we are so small. And like you said, it only takes a few kids to dramatically drop that. So I will work with you on that. And Julie, if you would like an assistance with that.
I would absolutely love it because I know, like I said, Brandon and I already went up. This has been something we've been trying to chip away at for a while now. And I have a legislator who's willing to sign it to make a bill happen. So I'm like, if I've got somebody there who's willing to actually go forward.
Absolutely.
And I've got a senator that's behind it. No. But I also
really
have a senator that supports it.
she's
I'm
a
like,
good one.
I've got people up there that think this is a good idea. So we just have to give it the momentum it needs to be carried on. So that's what I want to do.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm hoping to do. Anyway, so
Well, thank you for your diligence and
I've been trying, and Brandon and I, like I said, we've been working on it for a very long time and adamant about making this change. It'll help our report card. It'll help all kids across the state of Ohio, and hopefully become something that small districts like ours can not be dinged for, because it's not our fault that these kids need services, and it's definitely not our fault that the state requires us to defer them, but it is their fault that they don't count those kids.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's all. So that's why we slipped it in under policy, just
Yes.
because it's not really, I don't have a legislative thing
Yes.
to tell you about this, so,
yeah.
yeah.
Mary
Yeah.
mentioned it at the community meeting too. I know when people have questions about the grade card, I want to say.
Yeah. It definitely
Our
affects
grade
us.
is what it is because we have the audacity to help kids who need it.
Well, and I just can't help but what you keep saying about, make them count. It's like that has so many meanings,
Yeah.
And
Well,
so-
in our teachers, you're basically saying,
Yeah.
okay, you spent all these years prepping these kids for a graduation day that doesn't matter. What work did you put in? What tears, blood, and sweat did you put behind this job for those kids to walk across that stage and be handed a blank piece of paper that never matters? And I get it. Some people are like, well, they didn't take normal classes. No, they didn't. But do you know what success looks like for a student who has had to struggle their entire life?
Right.
And a family who supported them and teachers who cared about them every single day for them to not count?
Yeah, school is to
it
get
makes
them
me
ready
mad.
for what's next, not
Yeah.
not to be like the typical kids. It's totally different.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not like these kids are, going to be the next, Juilliard top performer or, the best lawyer in Washington, D.C. We're not expecting that. But what I expect is an opportunity to be a normal kid for a day and treated like a normal graduate for a day and to count for their entire experience in our district. That's what matters. So, soapbox. There you go.
Good job.
That's it. But
Thank you.
I'm working on it.
All right. Well, thanks to both of you for your hard work and all the work that sounds like it is to come with Amanda and Julie. So. All right. We are moving on. Number 8, building and grounds. Ms. Fowler.
Thank you again. We do have a couple of requests. Let's see here. The Norwood Police have requested Shea Stadium, locker rooms, field, and track for their agility testing at the end of May on the 27th, 7 to 2. They do have a rain date given for June 3rd, just in case. And the Fireworks Committee would also like to use Shea Stadium, field, and track for the 18th annual Norwood Hometown Fireworks scheduled for Monday, July 4th from 5 to 11. So those are the only 2 requests at this time. I don't foresee any popping up last minute. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right. Item 9, this is Finance Committee, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Campos.
Thank you, Madam President. 9.01, the financials, monthly financials, CFO report and change order listings are attached for your review. 9.02, appropriation resolution for our current year budget will be attached for next week. 9.03, then a now and then purchase orders. Just a couple of purchase orders that need further approval. 9.04, Agile Blue subscription agreement. Software agreement will provide continuous monitoring services to detect, analyze, and respond to security threats to district technology infrastructure. Not only does this agreement replace 2 other softwares, but it provides even greater threat detection and response. By replacing the 2 other softwares, we'll be saving $26,000 annually with this subscription. 9.05, Hamilton County ESC. This is our annual order of services provided by the ESC for the 23-24 school year. 9.06, SWOCA, our annual order of software services provided by SWOCA for the 23-24 school year. 9.07, Tri-Health Sports Medicine Agreement. This 5-year agreement provides Norwood with sports trainer management for all athletic events at no cost to the district. In addition, this agreement contains a newly negotiated sponsorship that will bring in $25,000 over the life of the agreement to Norwood's athletic department. We appreciate Chuck Richardson's persistence in negotiating this beneficial agreement for the district. Our prior sports medicine agreement did not have a sponsorship agreement in it, so there was no funds coming in. So this is a really great thing for our athletics department. 9.08, the 5-year forecast. We just reviewed the forecast. It is attached as well as the assumptions for your review tonight and approval next Thursday. 9.09, to accept the winning bid for roof replacement, to accept the appropriate bidder from this upcoming Friday's bid opening for a roof replacement for Williams Elementary and Board Office and for View Elementary. That bid opening has not happened yet. Like I said, it will be Friday as a placeholder for next week's adoption. 9.10, accept the winning bid for accounting services. The Auditor of State's Office has allowed the district to contract out with an independent accounting firm for its annual audit services. This bid will be attached next week for your approval also. The Auditor of State actually did all the bidding for us, and we reviewed 6 different independent CPA firms before we selected one. It's still in the works. I don't have the final documents yet, but again, I'll have that for you next week to approve. That is all I have for finance.
That seems like enough.
I
That's a
love
lot.
that.
We've done a lot in finance.
I was gonna say, I feel like this has been Mrs. Camphouse's show
I-
today.
I was thinking that too.
May as
Star
Miss
of the
Campbell
show,
this
Julie
month.
Camphhouse.
Enough is enough.
All right, so, let's see, I think we're at the end, right?
We are.
So item 10, this is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
All motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned, 7:12. All right, and we all right,
All right.
all right. So the time is 7:13. Sorry, I'd like to call to order the special meeting for Tuesday, May the 9th. The Norwood City School District Board of Education follows a bi-monthly meeting schedule. The first meeting of the month is called our committee meeting. At this meeting, we discuss fully our agenda for the board meeting to be held the third Thursday of each month. As board members, we encourage you to attend, watch, and listen to our committee discussion resulting in action at the board meetings. For full disclosure, our committee meetings and board meetings are always announced, video and audio taped, as well as posted to our webpage for your view. All of our meetings are public and visitors are welcome. Mrs. Campos, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Atwood?
Present.
Ms. Ballard?
Present.
Mrs. Verica?
Present.
Mr. Taylor?
Present.
Mrs. Cole?
Present. All right, 1.03, this is the adoption of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as written?
All motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, Mrs. Campos?
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Verica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes. All right, with our agenda approved, we can go ahead and get started. Item 2, this is the Finance Committee report, and I will be turning it over to Mrs. Camphouse, our treasurer.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 2.01, Tax Incentive Agreement, Montgomery and Maple. This resolution is the final document to approve the Tax Incentive Economic Development Project at the Old Quality Inn site. This site needed a tremendous amount of work to be a buildable site and is a prime location for redevelopment for the city of Norwood. Because the site was in such bad shape, it qualified for a tax abatement to the developer. We've been negotiating a school compensation agreement since August. After much work and discussion between all parties, we've come up with a suitable agreement that will benefit the developer and the district in the long term. The actual compensation agreement will abate taxes for the developer for the first 15 years and will compensate the school district the great majority of the abated taxes in the last 15 years. And there is a vote box there. Would you like to take care of that now?
Yes, there's a box there. Let's go ahead and do it. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll
I'll
make a
mo-
motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just want to thank everybody for getting this resolution here. You know, for the most part, the financial terms of this was settled many, many months ago, and it was just the language that just needed to be cleared up. And since that has been done so, we now have the resolution for us to be considering tonight.
Any other discussion? Mrs. Campos?
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Verica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
2.02, reject bids from the April 14th, 2023 bid opening. Unfortunately, all bids opened on April 14th were more than 10% over the estimate project amounts and must be rejected per law. We are working to rebid those projects. These included boilers, roofs, and the beautification project. And again, another vote box.
Do I have a motion to reject the bids?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camphouse?
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Verica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
2.03, bid opening on May 8th, 2023, to accept the lowest bidder from the May 8th bid opening to provide 2 new boilers for the high school building. Attached are the bid tabulation document, the letter of recommendation from our architect, and the A1A contract to Triton Services.
Do I have a motion to accept the bid from Triton Services?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mrs. Camp House?
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes.
Finally, 2.04, resolution of urgent necessity to abstain from bidding requirements in order to replace the gym floor in a more timely manner. This project has already been delayed as we work through the procedures involving 3 insurance companies, ours, the subcontractors, and the builder's risk policy. We simply cannot delay the installation of a new gym floor any longer and must complete this project as soon as possible. More details are provided in the body of the actual resolution for your review.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution of urgent necessity?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Any discussion?
I do have something. So
Okay.
urgent necessity is something that this district does not do very often and should never be done lightly. But given the circumstances of the damage that was done to the high school gym, our varsity basketball team, didn't even get to have their season there. Right? And now, because it's going through 3 different insurance companies, and now there's abatement because there's asbestos underneath it and all this other kind of stuff, now we run the risk of not having volleyball in there in the fall. Right? Because if this isn't on somebody's schedule, like Cincinnati floor or Ohio floor, if this isn't on their schedule now to be done over the summer, it's
Right.
not going to get done. So with that, I do recommend that the board supports the urgent necessity so we can just, get this thing done, let the insurance companies fight it out after the fact, so that a way we can, provide service to our students and our community with the use of that space.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Now, is this tied to the boilers that are gonna be replaced? That, it's a separate, and
No.
then for the HVAC unit that caused the pipes to freeze, was that one of the new units that went in? Or is,
It's
that
a
was
new
from
unit,
one of the
yeah.
new units? Okay, and that was dealt with the company that did the installation? Okay,
Well, actually, our people fixed it.
it was, okay,
But yes, the company that it failed for is the one that will eventually have to pay for
okay,
all the claims.
all right.
Yeah,
Or their
and
insurance.
So for
will.
folks, this is not coming out of any type of budget or
That's
reallocation of funds or anything like that. This is insurance and not our
and this
money.
affected more than us. Boosters. This
Oh,
affected.
yeah. I just mean it's not something that
Right.
we're trying to pay out of pocket for
That's
just because
correct.
we want a new gym floor. This is something completely separate that
emergency.
needs
Yeah.
to be done.
It's an emergency that insurance will cover, has
Thank you
covered.
for clearing that up because I know the public always wants to know.
Yeah,
Right.
if they're like, well, why is,
Where did that money come from?
well, what, you have a new gym floor. Well, yeah, well, how'd you pay for that? Well, damage,
Right.
insurance, that's how.
Well, and
We
plus
lost
if
a
it's
whole
something-
basketball season because of that floor.
Yeah.
And if we have that bid out, for that, or that's
This
already been taken care
resolution
of?
will make it so that we don't have to bid it out, so that we can take the insurance company's
Directly
quote
and get it done.
and,
Okay.
and go ahead and get it done, yes.
Perfect.
And anybody that's dealt with insurance companies understands why we, why we want to move now.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Well, the getting's good.
Mrs. Camp House?
Mr. Atwood?
Yes.
Ms. Ballard?
Yes.
Mrs. Rarica?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Mrs. Cole?
Yes. Okay, with that taken care of, we are now at item 3, which is our closing. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
All motion?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned, 7:21. Thank you.